I make a motion, we approve the agenda for the first reading of the board, of the budget for next year.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mr. Mackey, you up.
All right, it's good to be here as always. I've got a little PowerPoint to walk you through our proposed budget for now. We'll sort of call this the public hearing / budget workshop that we'll work with going forward. So I'll just start with an overview of our revenue for the upcoming year. The good news is our local revenue is projected to increase. Our fee in lieu of tax money is going up. That's mostly due to Inviva. I think it's like a pellet factory, I'm not exactly sure. Their fee agreement is going away, so now they're paying their full tax bill, and they've also increased their investment, which just means they've added on to what they're doing. So they're paying more tax. That's largely what's driving the increase. Just our regular property tax revenue has gone up a little bit. It's projected, we're budgeting at for $7.3 million this year. As you can see, it's up almost a full million from where we've budgeted it for fiscal year 23, where we're going to end up. That's likely just a one-year increase, though, because we'll start seeing Fuji impact next year. So it's good for this 1 year we've got coming up, but just keep that in mind that we'll probably be having a different discussion next year. And then our Tier 3 reimbursement property tax went up also. That is the statewide penny sales tax. When they, Act 388, when they took away school district tax on 4% property, which is just primary residence, and replaced it with a penny sales tax. So that's that penny sales tax. It's up statewide. So those are our increases for our tax revenue. Our state revenue, the allocation from the Senate and Congress, right now we're sitting at 6.7 million from the most recent Senate projections. That's up about 400,000 from where we ended up last year. But one thing to keep in mind with the new funding formula, it's based on weighted pupil units. They take your weighted pupil units divided by the statewide number of weighted pupil units, and then that ratio is how they allocate your portion of education funding. And so they readjust that at the 45-day student count and at the 135-day student count. So last year we got our initial projection, and then this year when we got the 45-day numbers, the state grew at a much higher rate than we grew, which means we lost some of our allocation. The denominator got bigger than the numerator. It's just a simple math equation. So our budgeted allocation decreased by $238,000. So because we've sort of got this moving target, we don't know how fast the state's growing or shrinking. We used to be able to say, we added 10 students that will equal this much more money. We can't do that anymore because we're compared to the whole state. So because we've got this moving target, I've taken that 6.7 million from the initial projections, and I've only budgeted 6.5 million, just to sort of budget in that potential decrease for the reallocations at 45 and 135. So our total revenue, like I said, local revenue 7.3. The tier 1, 2, and 3, those are just different state tax revenues we get. It's about 2.6. Our allocation from the education funding, as I just mentioned, is 6.5. For our total revenue of $16,523,118. And our budgeted revenue last year was 15.3. So it's about a $1.2 million increase. That's about 8 to 9% increase in our budget. Any questions on the revenue before I move forward? Okay. So then what are we going to do with all that revenue for this year? Our goals, our big ones, employee retention and recruitment. It's teaching, education's a service, and people provide that service. So, we want to take care of our people as much as possible and make sure we get the best people and keep the best people. And then there's just a couple addressing some areas of need that we've identified through different budget meetings and board meetings and the like. So talking about employee recruitment and retention, in the state education budget, they're increasing the minimum state salary scale by $2,500. I'm sure you've probably heard that. So the new state minimum salary will be $42,500. And this is the same as it was last year with the $4,000 increase. They're increasing the state minimum salary scale, but if you're over the minimum, you don't have to increase it by $4,000, or in this case, the $2,500. So our current minimum is $42,850. So we are over the new minimum, so technically we would not have to do anything to our teacher salaries. We could just leave them exactly as is. But obviously, that's not what we want to do. Again, we want to keep and recruit the best teachers we can. And if you look at that $2,500, if you add that to every step on the different teacher salary scales, there's 5 scales: bachelor's plus 18, master's plus 30, and then doctorate. So there's 5 teacher scales based on your level of education. If you add $2,500 to each of those scales, average it out, it's a 4% increase. It's a 4% cumulative increase as well. So we are budgeting this year a 4% increase to all salary scales, teacher scales, and classified scales. I have excluding food service and bus drivers on the slide. That's only because they're hourly employees, so their scales work a little different. But 4% for all other salaries, which would bring our teacher minimum salary to $44,564, and we're also budgeting a step increase for all employees as well. For food service and bus drivers, we've budgeted a $2 per hour increase for all food service. That won't be reflected in our general fund budget because food service is a separate fund. They're accounted for on their own. But in discussing this with our food service director, Amy Stabler, we feel that this is something that we can definitely make happen. So a $2 increase for food service. And then bus drivers are kind of weird. They're our employees, but then the state considers them state employees because the state owns the buses. And so the state is requiring or budgeting a 25% increase for their staff. So the bus drivers have to get a 25% increase at each step of their scale. So that equals out to, on the low end of the scale, it's, as you can see, it's a $2.28 per hour increase. And at the high end of the scale, it's a $3.35 per hour increase. So our bus drivers will get that increase as mandated by the state. And then we've got a couple new things we've added here at the bottom. A $250 perfect attendance bonus for staff per semester. That's just to encourage people to come to work, essentially. We've had some extenuating circumstances, some unusual circumstances where we've had some staff out for long periods of time. So our sub budget for this year is, some places we've gone over budget. So to try to combat some of that, we want to try to incentivize our teachers to come to work and our staff. So that's the $250 bonus per semester, and then paying out our sick days over 90, which you get 12 sick days a year, and they roll over until you get to 90. So we used to pay out over 90. We got rid of that a few years ago. We want to institute that back in. And that 90 days comes from the retirement system. We'll accept 90 days of sick leave towards your service credit, but not anything over that. So that's why you pay out over 90. $65 per day for certified staff, $50 for non-certified. And then the last one, we want to add 5 contract days for our assistant varsity football coaches. We've compared ourselves to some other districts and what they pay for their football coaches and their supplements, and we could pay ours a little bit more. So we've proposed to add 5 contract days, which is pretty standard from what we've looked at. And then also, I didn't add this in there, we're increasing our band assistant supplements as well. But since most of them are not staff, we're just doing $1,000, which is a rough estimate of a 5-day increase. And then addressing areas.
Let me
Oh,
ask you a
yeah,
question
yeah.
right quick. So on the, with the adding the 5 days, where does that stand as far as if we increase the supplement and not necessarily the 5 days?
Well, so adding days, so right now we pay a supplement just twice a year, at the end of the fall, winter season, and then in the spring season. So adding days, you just get that increase throughout the year. It's just allocated into your regular paycheck. So you get that money more evenly spread out. It rewards teachers and staff who've got higher education, got their masters, and moved up the scale. So their daily rate's higher, so then their contract days are higher. And it's the Greenwood's added days. I think I have a list of some of the districts I can pull up that all add days to their coaching. So I think it's just more of standard, not really standard operating procedure, but that's what a lot of other places are doing. So.
And as far as our supplements, we're in line with
Yeah,
I want to
so-
say schools our size, basically.
Yeah, so we currently pay $4,150 per football coach. And I've compared us to, with the help of BJ Wirtz, our athletic director, and then our salary study we had done a couple years ago. It was Abbeville, Newberry, Saluda, Ware Shoals, Anderson 3, Clinton. So, not the Greenwoods of the world, but the ones we compete against, similar size. And when you add their supplements with the days, because most of them have days on their assistant football coaches. So I did just a rough average of a day of $275 per day. Their salaries equal out to be about $5,400. So we're a little bit behind where they are. So then, that, like I said, adding 5 days is between $1,000 and $1,200. So that pulls us, if we add days, it's an average of about $5,300 for our football coaches. So it gets us close to where everyone else is at.
We did do that comparison with all sports and with the band and band directors. And so we looked at that same group. We sat down, Darren, BJ, myself, and Andrew. We looked at that and spread it out. And we're very consistent or stronger in other areas. This was the one area, and then the band situation with our success, that level of success we have every year, we bumped him up to. So.
All right. Sounds good.
And then addressing areas of need, we added the 4K class. We've talked about that several meetings in a row. That requires a teacher assistant, supplies, materials for the classroom, all of that. Based on our special education numbers, we need a new teacher at the high school, so we've got that budgeted. And then, the last item, we've had budget meetings with all the principals, directors, whatnot, so we've taken some of those requests and incorporated them throughout the budget. I can go into more detail there if you want me to, but it gets pretty granular from there. So then our total budget expenditures, $12.5 million in salaries and fringe, $3.9 in other expenditures. That works out to $1.75 for district operations, which includes curriculum, instruction, maintenance, transportation. About $1 million to the schools, and then $1.2 million is transferred to other funds. So to explain that a little bit, the old formula had a lot of different line items. You got money for CERDEP, you got money for at-risk students, you got money for this, and you had to account for all of these things in different funds. Here in the last couple of years, they're rolling all those separate revenue items into just one lump sum and say, here, you do with it what you want. So we've decided to just better record keeping, easier for us to say, this is what we pay for 4K. We've kept those funds, and then we'll just transfer our general fund money to supplement those funds. And that $1.2 million is mostly salaries, like for our 4K class, our alternative school principal, stuff like that. So our total expenditures, balance budget, $16,523,118. any questions on expenditures? And then just some things to remember, Fujifilm, I'm going to keep hammering that point home. We'll start seeing that, like I said, in fiscal year 2025. Initial estimates I've gotten from the county, they're 2 years old now, almost, was approximately between $400,000 and $520,000 per year. I think it was $400,000 the first year, then $520,000 the next years. We're optimistic that it'll be less than that because space is actively being shopped. There's the real estate group out of Milwaukee or something like that who bought it, is trying to fill it. Eaton has apparently taken over some spots. Okay. And the good thing about Eaton, I've heard, is that they're paying the full tax bill, so they're not getting any kind of tax agreement out of it. So hopefully the impact's not too bad, and then we'll get revenue from Teijin. I'm anticipating by fiscal year 2027 because their fee agreement started this year. They get 5 years free, and then 5 years, 55% reduction. So we should start seeing something in 2 or 3 years. And then, our state education allocation, I budgeted conservatively. I knocked off about $250,000 right off the top. So if the allocation actually matches the projection, we'll have some more money in our pocket after the 45-day count. We'll know sort of where we fall. So we might have some more money, some more flexibility halfway through the year next year. Any questions? Thoughts? Anything we missed?
I didn't see anything there for board members.
Well, yeah.
So, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
This new housing complex that's
Sure.
coming into town, how will that affect our budget?
Well, if we get more students, we will get more. Our weighted pupil units will go up, so our ratio goes up, so we'll get more of an allocation. They allocate the Tier 3 property tax, the penny sales tax statewide. They allocate that based on your enrollment, so we'll probably get some more money from that. So it would increase our money, but then because part of your money is allocated based on your index of tax paying ability, which is they just take how much local revenue you can generate. They shoot for a 75%, 25% split, where the state foots 75% of the bill and we foot 25%. Now, sometimes your index of tax paying ability is 40%. So where you could support 40%, so they only give you 60. Sometimes it's 8%, so they give you 92. So it's hard to really know, because once your local revenue starts going up, the state's going to sort of level you off. So it should be good for us, I'll say, but it's hard to know.
Any other questions? That concludes our budget hearing. Entertain a motion to adjourn from this part.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll see you guys again at 6 o'clock.
8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Do I just X out of what I got? Thank you, thank you.